Hi, everyone. It's Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media. This week's Rutgers Rant is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. A big thank you to our sponsor and to all of our listeners for the continued support. Now let's get to the show.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights. With your host, Steve Politi, and Rutgers insiders Keith Sargent and James Cratch. Let's start shopping.
Hello, everybody. Steve Politi, NJ Advanced Media. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. A great day in Rutgers history. Fellas, I'm not talking about Saturday, of course. We will eventually talk about Saturday, but we're going to start. We're going to start with field hockey. We're going to start with Gianna Glatz, Terry Burns, Meredith Civico, Medford, New Jersey. All the players seem like they're from Medford, New Jersey. I don't know why that is. You can tell I've done some research here. Although Carrie Burns? Terry or Carrie Burns? Damn it, I got it wrong, Cratch. Which one is it? Tell me.
Carrie Burns.
She's
from Ireland. Northern
Ireland, in fact. Yes. I watched the video. She's got the great Irish accent. The first Big Ten tournament championship in Rutgers history. Yes, we're going to start there because football was a debacle. We're certainly spent a lot of time talking about football, but let's talk about the good thing, right? Cratch, you were on site, a 1-0 victory over Michigan, which seems fitting if you're going to win a Big Ten championship.
Yes.
To beat the Wolverines. What was the scene? Take me on to field hockey here.
It was an incredible scene. I think you had a big crowd that was really into it. The incredible thing about Michigan is I wrote this in my story. It felt like Michigan had more players on the field the whole time. Like they just were all over the place with their highlighter yellow or maize uniforms. And they actually, for the last 5 minutes, I didn't know this until I've never seen it before. You can pull the goalie in field hockey.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
You can.
Okay.
And actually, the rules kind of work in your advantage because I didn't know this, but it's not like in hockey where you can just fire a shot from across the ice and if it goes in, it's a goal. You can't do that in field hockey.
Really?
So
why not?
Yeah, so
that's not fair.
Yes, exactly. So they pull the goalie with 5 minutes to go, and they really kind of control possession. But Rutgers just gritty, gutty. They kept fending off the onslaught, and then the clock ran out. I mean, look. An incredible story. They're not the first Big Ten champion in school history. Obviously, women's soccer with the regular season title, you have to acknowledge that. But first tournament champion in history. And if you go back to it, Meredith Civico was an all-state player in high school in New Jersey. I think she went to Ocean Township. I might be wrong. I'll check that in a second. She didn't get recruited by Rutgers. It's like this classic Rutgers origin story.
Unbelievable.
They don't recruit the all-state player in their backyard. Then she becomes a coach, gets to Rutgers. She gets hired by Tim Pernetti at age 28 to take over a program that was just completely an afterthought on campus, and she's built them into a Big Ten champion. Now the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. There's only 18 teams in the tournament. This team is 2 wins away at home from going to the Final Four. They're 4 wins away from winning a national title. Wow. Yeah. And they've beaten the teams that are seeded 2 and 3.
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty good sign.
Excuse me. I mean, this is a team that could very likely win the whole thing.
Yeah, I it's significant. It's the first. It's good to be the first in something. And we should mention, you mentioned the women's soccer, the first Big Ten champion. That wasn't, that was 2 weeks ago, right? A week ago. Well, that was very recent that the women's soccer team strapped the trophy into their bus out in Indiana, Illinois. So hey, look, those are 2 good moments. The overall, what was the cliche, Sarge? All ships rise with the water. What was that again?
The rising tide lifts all boats.
There you go.
By the way, I was Ocean City High School, Meredith Civico, a little bit further south.
Right. Why does this matter, Sarge? Give me the perspective of why we should care about these 2 teams and what they're doing.
It matters because the first 5-6 years in Big Ten play, we have written about it countless times of just how much they've struggled in the Big Ten play. It wasn't just football, it wasn't just men's basketball. With the exception of women's basketball and women's soccer, all the programs had struggled, and it was basically because the on ramp to get to the Big Ten, was so steep that they for years they struggled, in the Big East and then the American Athletic Conference, and a lot of these programs just weren't prepared. I talked to Pat Hobbs about it late last week, and he says it's a simple formula. You hire really good coaches, which he believes he has, and then you give them resources, and they have, and the resources are RWJ Barnabas, which several programs are taking advantage of. It's the Rutgers Center, which is state of the art, for women's soccer, men's soccer, and the lacrosse programs, as well as the academic component. And even field hockey is taking advantage of improved locker rooms, and their playing surface is one of the best in the country. So he's really giving them the resources. It matters because now they can say, with the exception of I guess we're going to talk about football, right? I mean in a minute, but with the exception of football, we could be honest about that. Every program is starting to prove that they belong in the Big Ten. Maybe baseball too. I think might and softball might be a little bit of ways away before they could say that they're Big Ten level elite.
But for the most part, both lacrosse teams last year with field hockey, both soccer teams, both basketball teams. I mean, you're looking at it. And of course, after the football fiasco, the first email that I get in my inbox is, of course, well, Rutgers doesn't belong in the Big Ten.
Same here.
Of course, every time. Well, there you go. I've got 15 teams that are proving the exact opposite. So I think that's an important place to start because that's the good news.
Well, I think we've said this a lot on the podcast. I know I've said it. The field hockey, women's soccer, men's lacrosse, these are sports that the State University of New Jersey should always be good in. And when you are in the Big Ten, you can be elite in them. Right. I think we're finally seeing that happen.
Right. All right. That's the good news. Do we want to I guess we have to. We're a football podcast. The football game was not good. And Kratch, you hit the nail on the head with your film review, which really wasn't much to review. That it was one of the worst blowouts that I've seen in recent history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Here's what bothered me, and this, it's 31-3 at halftime, and that's bad. And then they had their bad quarter, the third quarter, in which they gave up 240 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wisconsin pretty much stopped trying, was running the ball up and down the field. They missed tackles, non-competitive. I don't like to say a team quit, but Sarge, I mean, you're watching this, the second half of that game. I mean, what do you come away with when you see that performance? I mean, it was kind of disgraceful.
I think you said, unless there's overwhelming evidence that their tackling was brutal in the third quarter, and they couldn't move the ball. So yeah, I mean, saying a team quit, is tough, but that was a really, really, really poor effort. We said going in, and look, I mean, I picked Rutgers to cover. I think Kratch might have done the same, but they just did not match up at all on either side of the line. Wisconsin has dudes on the offensive line. Rutgers just could not match up whatsoever. You saw it right from the beginning. They were just pounding it on the ground. Look, Rutgers it kept it competitive for a quarter and a half, but they just did not have the firepower to match up with Wisconsin.
Right. I wrote this. Wisconsin has been one of the best teams in the Big Ten for years now. They hadn't scored 50 points on a conference opponent in 7 years. They are not built to do this. I think go back to the third quarter, I think it goes back to that kind of, when a team is up big, everyone, you throw the ball, you're trying to run up the score. In some cases, it's more humane to actually throw the ball. This was one of those cases because Wisconsin was just physically dominating Rutgers, that even if they were just running basic run plays into the line, it still was going for big gains. It was the only beatdown I've seen on this beat that I think was worse was Ohio State 2018. And that's mainly because I thought Nick Bosa killed Art Sikowski for a moment. Like that, but you take that play away, it was right up there. Same score, too.
Right. So, all right. So this game, for when it was competitive, another thing that bothered me in the game. All right. So you can say Noah Vedral didn't see linebacker on the first interception. Wisconsin, of course, cashes in, scores on the short field. They get the ball back and they move down into Wisconsin territory, and then it's 3rd and 5. And you wrote about it in your podcast. I not to say I hated the play call would be the understatement. You hand the ball off, gets 2 yards, and then it's 4th and 3. If you're really playing not to you try to get in front of that game, try to keep it close. You kick the field goal there. I don't know. I mean, it seems like that was a message that this game was never going to be competitive. Cratch. I mean, you wrote about it in your film review. That was the statement right there.
Yeah, I just thought I was intrigued. You know, I don't disagree with Greg Schiano. He said after the game, you know, the only way they could beat that team was to play with the lead. But you deferred the kickoff to start the game when you could have taken the ball and tried to take a lead. You get the interception, Avery Young pick, and I know everyone sticks with their script, but I mean, Isaiah Pacheco's sweep for the 2-yard loss to the wide side of the field was like, you had this, that was not a moment. Then you mentioned the interception. I don't know what happened there. It looked to me like Giovanni Haskins just didn't run the route he was supposed to, or Noah Vedral anticipated he was going to run. But then to kind of just kick the field goal there, I mean, all three of those moves in a vacuum, perfectly logical, make football sense. But if you were so concerned about getting a lead on Wisconsin and playing from ahead, it just didn't seem like there was much urgency to get a lead.
Yep. All right. So now Vedral leaves the game at 45-3. I mean, even Greg Schiano admitted I saw him trot out there before he got hurt, and this is not a second guess. I tweeted it as he was getting hurt. Like, why in the world is Noah Vedral still in this game? He appeared to kick him up woozy. It looked like a concussion. He didn't talk to us after the game, which is a bad sign, as opposed to, in past when he's been hurt, he's still come out there and said, I'm fine. So he doesn't look fine. Here's my question for both of you. You take it first, Sarge. Is he going to play, number one? And if not, I mean, where are we with the next quarterback? I mean, Evan Simon was the first one off the bench in this game. It was Cole Snyder last game. Wimsatt made the big throw last game. He didn't play in this game. What's the story with the quarterback position right now?
I'm half expecting Austin Alberici to
why not, right? Sure.
Press again and come back and become the quarterback. I mean, it's my guess. I can't even speculate. It's Monday. It's a couple days after. We're going to talk to Greg Schiano later today. So it's really hard to say. But I think he'll be in concussion protocol. I mean, it looked like a head injury. And I think, it didn't look good. I mean, Noah has taken a ton of punishment the last 4 weeks. Okay. So in some ways, I think this might be the accumulation too of a couple of weeks ago, I think he might've been dinged as well. So it all adds up. We've talked about it before. It's all a byproduct of the offensive line and him just not, him taking some brutal hits the past month. So my gut tells me that he's going to be, it's going to be a wait and see, and we're not going to know until later in the week. Wow. As far as who's the backup, my gut, I think probably is Cole Snyder, but I don't know. I think we're finally in the window of Gavin Wimsatt. I would predict or expect it to see him, get a little bit more heavy dose of it, but the whole Simon and Snyder, I Kratz can weigh in on this, but the flip flopping, my gut tells me that that it's close between the two of them, and he wants to give him as much rope as possible. Plus, I don't know if he wants both of them to transfer at the end of the year. So I think he's trying to to try to keep them both happy.
All right, so the Wimsatt question, Kratch, is where I'm at with this. I mean, okay, you can make a case that he shouldn't have played against what was happening in that game, which was just non-competitive. He's got to play in this one, right?
I would think, yes. I mean, especially if Vedral's not available, I think you got to play him. I mean, at this point, it's hard because Rutgers is kind of stuck in limbo here because technically they still are in bowl contention, and if realistically, you can beat Indiana, you can beat Maryland. That's 6 wins. You're going. If they lose to Indiana and that they go to 4-6 with Penn State looming, I think at that point you need to be real with yourself and say, okay, we're not going to a bowl game. We need to spend the next 2 weeks getting Gavin ready to start the finale. That's if I were Rutgers, I would be looking to on-ramp Wimsatt to the point where he starts against Maryland, because if you're not going to go to a bowl game, the best thing you could do is have that kid start. You beat Maryland. First off, we'll talk about the crowd at some point, but the only way they're going to get fannies in the seats that Saturday after Thanksgiving is if Gavin Wimsatt's on the field, and they know Gavin Wimsatt's on the field. And if you win that game with him, then you got a lot of momentum to go into season, obviously spring practice and the next fall. So I agree with you. I think Gavin should play this week. You're within the window now. You don't have to worry about the red shirt ramifications. And I think that if you're not going to a bowl game, you should start to get him ready to start against Maryland.
All right, good stuff. We will talk about the crowd in a minute. All right, let's dive into true or false, guys. You know how this works. We'll have lots of good topics to talk about, and then we'll discuss them all at the end. All right, first one. True or false? Injuries are too much. Linebackers down, quarterback down. This team won't win again. Cratch, true or false?
False.
Okay. Sarge?
False.
All right. I got to tell you, I'm leaning toward true. We'll talk about it at the end. Settle down, Politi. Indiana is bad and Maryland is worse. The bowl is still on the table, and we'll be talking about it for the rest of the month. Cratch, true or false?
False.
False. All right. I think we know what that means for you. Sarge, true or false?
False.
False. Okay. So you're both not optimistic there. I'll jump with you on false as well. True or false? Sean Gleason should find a way to feature the tight end more in this offense. That third and 5 play is the one that sticks out in my mind. Cratch, true or false?
I'm going to say false. They need to find a way to feature Johnny Langan more in the offense as a tight end.
Good point. Good point. Sarge, true or false?
I'll say false.
All right, I'm going true because Fuchs was yelling about this at the Giants game, and he's right. All right, true or false? See, Vivian Stringer will coach a game this season. Cratch, true or false?
I will say false.
Sarge?
False.
That's a pretty quick false from Sarge. So that's the direction I'm going to lean into. We'll talk about that in a minute. True or false? Rutgers will reach the Final Four in field hockey. Cratch, you were hinting at this a moment ago. What's your prediction? True or false?
True.
Sarge?
I'm renting the caravan to go to Ann Arbor. So the answer is true. And Politi will be there. Cratch will be there.
I'll be there in a Gianna Glatz jersey. My new favorite Rutgers. That's a great name. True. Absolutely. They will be in the Final Four. All right. Harder one. More teams. More competition. Rutgers will reach the Final Four in women's soccer. Cratch, true or false?
I'm going to say false.
All right. Sarge?
I'm going to say true.
Yeah, I'm going true, too. Well, ye of little faith. True for women's soccer. They won the Big Ten. They only lost one game in 19 tries in the Big Ten. All right. And the bigger prediction, Rutgers will win a natty in one of those two sports. Cratch, is this it? Is this finally a national championship for Rutgers? True or false?
I will say false.
Oh, okay. Sarge?
True.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna go close, but no cigar. False as well. All right. And finally, the men's hoops team will make the NCAA tournament, and they won't sweat it on Selection Sunday. Cratch, where do you stand on this one? True or false?
I will say true.
Wow. Okay. Sarge?
Will not be a bubble team. True.
Wow, I'm going to go false. I think it's just the way this Big Ten is. It's going to be. They'll still be wondering on Selection Sunday. All right, so I think we should go to the CViv question because your answer was pretty quick there, Sarge. I mean, what's your sense with what's going on there?
We're taping this podcast, and we're a day away from the start of the season. She has not coached at all since April. She can't have contact with the team, Steve, because of NCAA rules. You can only have 4 coaches coaching, the head coach plus 3 assistants. And if she was to have contact, some people have asked, well, can't you just do a Zoom and then put like a video camera and let her watch it from her home? No, because that would be an NCAA violation. So the fact that she has not been around since April, the fact that the majority of this team came from the transfer portal, who all arrived in June and July. They don't even know her. It's mind-boggling to even say that. They obviously know her. She's a legend, but maybe some of them might have come to Rutgers because of her legendary status, but they don't know her. So we're a day away. She's not coaching. I could it seems near certain that she's not coaching the opener. And if she's not coaching the opener, I hate to say it, but if her big concern is COVID, our numbers are a lot better. Even if you do mass, it's not. I cannot see over the next 4 months her getting over this hurdle in her mind that to coach. I just don't see her coaching this season.
Do we know that's what it is? I mean, are we certain that it's because of her?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speculate that is anything beyond what she said. So.
Right. But has she said? I mean, has she said it? It's just
people have been on the record saying it. So
right.
Jimmy stood up there at the podium in Indianapolis and said it. So. He said it to me in a subsequent interview. So, right, I mean, right. I don't have any reason to think that it's anything other than her apprehension, and again, I've said this before. She has a daughter who has spinal meningitis, who is, susceptible to illnesses, and, she's, in her 70s, and, so I'm not going to speculate if that's what she says. Then I'm, at this point, and unless I had more concrete information, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Sort of unprecedented. All right, Cratch, let's go through some more of these here. The injury situation. What do we? By the end of the game, there were a lot of guys out. I mean, I don't think 03 left the game. I mean, I don't. The linebacking core was sort of unrecognizable from where they started. I mean, who do you think they're going to get back at this point? Any idea? I don't. We're not going to see Krushank again. I think that's pretty clear. But other than that, I mean, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, 03. They didn't announce any injury. I watched the game tape. It looked to me like it's. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I'm not going to pull the that thing, but it looked to me he was grabbing the back of his right leg, which kind of in the vicinity of a hamstring. And we all know, hamstrings can be something that guys bounce off, get over in a week. It can linger for a while, so that could be a real serious injury. Obviously, a tough blow. Troy Rainey, I think he returned the game, but he was dinged up. Guys like Julius Turner have taken a beating. Noah Vedral, obviously, we'll see what happens with him. There's a lot of injury concerns. And look, go back to last season where they got to the Nebraska game. They just were running on fumes. That has to be a concern again, I think, going into the last few weeks.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. So let's talk men's hoops for a minute. So you guys both think you think that this is going to be a comfortable cruising in 6 seed, 7 seed, not worrying about it in late February, March. I mean, it's going to be Is this going to be easy for you guys?
I was a little apprehensive to say true, just because, as we've talked about, I know Steve Peichel has told everyone this is the best team he's had, but I keep on saying there's no Jacob Young, there's no Miles Johnson. How can that be possible? But I do think, all reports have been that Ron Harper's had a really good preseason. If Ron Harper can be the guy he was early in the year, the entire year, that kind of changes the complexion of things. If Gio is healthier and is more productive, in terms of scoring, if Paul Mulcahy takes a big step forward, if Cliff takes a big step forward, I think this is a team that, I don't think they're going to be a top 4 seed, but I think they're, the other thing too is, I know we harp on the non-conference schedule all the time. They're going to rack up wins there. If you rack up enough wins there and you can win 8 to 10 Big Ten games, you're going to be comfortably in the field.
Right. Yeah. I guess, Sarge, we talk about Harper a lot. He was great early on, and then he had that, the best way to describe it, just 3, 4, or 5 week period where you're wondering what happened to him. He looks great in practice. Big Ten defenses handle him different than other teams. They know him. They're familiar with him. And do you think he's going to be the first team Big Ten star that this team needs?
I do. I mean, again, by all accounts, I mean, everyone has said that he has had a tremendous preseason. And again, I think that Crash was right. I think Geo Baker is going to make a leap as well. And then the rack. I mean, that's more of a known, quantity. They're selling out games. That's last year, and they didn't have the opportunity to use the rack to its advantage. That's one of their great weapons as a program. So they're going to be way more of a powerhouse, at home. Steve Peichel, and conversely, they're going to be facing more difficult road environments than they did a year ago. But, I think if they can win 4 or 5 games on the road and then take care of business at home, they're going to win a lot of games.
it feels like it's going to be a chills down your spine kind of moment on Wednesday when they lift that banner. Crowd hadn't been there in a year against Lehigh. It's going to be I think that's going to be a fun moment.
I'll tell you guys something. So obviously Sunday I was bouncing back and forth between field hockey and Jersey Mike's Arena. I think I only called up the rack once on Sunday,
Wow.
So I was pretty proud of myself for that. Wrestling, Connor O'Neill had a big comeback against Cleveland State. It was really cool to be there and to feel that place rock for the first time. And look, There's only 3,000 people. It's a sleepy season opening quad. Like the place came alive for the first time in a long time. And it was really cool. And I can only imagine what it's going to be like on Wednesday when there's 8,000 people there and they unfurl that banner and all that.
Can't wait. It's going to be fun. All right, guys, we'll talk more football predictions at the end here, but let's dive into the insider questions. Thanks to everyone, as always, for being a Rutgers insider, getting our text messages, even if they haven't been happy lately. All right, the first question, and it's a broad one. It's a good one. It's a fair one. Have we created unrealistic expectations for the football program? It takes time to create a winning program. And, I'll admit, I slapped them around pretty hard after that game. I criticized Greg Schiano. If you're going to tell fans to come out to the game, you've got to put a product on the field that makes them want to stay. I mean, it was just, it was not a good program. I guess what I will say, guys, and tell me if you agree, my expectations, I don't think are too high, but my expectations are they're not going to be down 45-3 against a middling Wisconsin offense at home. I mean, I just expected them to be better than that, and that's a fair expectation. Tell me how you feel.
Hey, Rutgers Rant listeners, it's Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media. We appreciate you supporting this podcast and the sponsors who help us continue doing it. This week's podcast is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. If you listen to this show, you love Rutgers. And if you love Rutgers, you know the positive impact that DevCo has made on the campus and its community. We thank the New Brunswick Development Corporation for its continued support and for helping make this podcast possible. Now back to the show.
I think the COVID year kind of complicated the expectations. Greg has kind of said that. We've said that. I always thought he was right about that. I think that it's very clear that last year COVID was the feature of their success, not a bug as part of their success. As far as expectations, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they've been unrealistic. I mean, I think my expectation for this team has been, if you get into a game and you're competitive and you don't win, like at Michigan, I think Michigan's a perfect example. They could have beaten Michigan. I think it's fair to criticize them for decisions or things they did in the game because they could have beaten Michigan. That doesn't mean that they should have beaten Michigan. I think it's fair, to take it. I think the best way to approach this team is go week by week. If you're in a game in the fourth quarter, you should try to win it, expect to win it. If you're not, you're not. But again, I think it's kind of weird. It's I feel like last year when they had the losses to Illinois and Michigan, the fan base was very angry that people like us were criticizing the team for not winning those games. But then at the end of the year, the fan base put the bowl expectation on the team when I think the media and the program was not putting a bowl expectation on the team. So it's kind of going back and forth. I think it's all over the place. It's very dramatic. I mean, at some point, I think it just has to be an even keel approach. There are going to be more days like this. There are also going to be days where you're in the big house with a chance to take the lead against Michigan in the fourth quarter. It's just going to be up and down, even keel. But right now, the fan base has these big dramatic swings to the left and to the right.
Right. Yeah. I guess it'd be easier if they got one of these. Other teams get these all the time. I mean, Purdue takes down a Michigan State. I get it. Purdue's better. But what I'm saying? Other teams, Illinois beat Penn State, for example. If you can get one of these occasionally, it takes a lot of the sting off. Sorry. It takes a lot of the sting off 52-3 to Wisconsin if you had beaten a decent team. Right. And they did that last year. They beat Michigan State last year.
Definitely. And I think you wrote about it. Recruiting is on the upswing. So he's going to need a couple of years to bring in his own recruits. If you go back to a year ago, we were saying, look, it's going to be a long haul. Chris Ash's recruiting was not good, and that he was inheriting, not recruiting classes that were ranked in the bottom 3 or 4 of the Big Ten. So the one thing I will say is they did have a lot of guys back from a year ago. So from the expectation standpoint, you could have said, well, they had 20 or 22 starters, they almost the entire defense back. But at the same time, We talked about this before. Depth. They clearly do not have, depth. If you look at the story of the season, is going to be, the injuries have taken their toll, and it's a Big Ten. This is going to be a continuing theme for many years until he can recruit to the level of not just having Big Ten quality starters, but Big Ten quality depth. To kind of deal with injuries, because guess what, they're going to happen.
Right.
Another thing I would say.
Go ahead, sir.
It's kind of crazy. I think Chris Ash kind of struggled with it, and now Greg Schiano, maybe in a small way, is starting to struggle with it. Steve Peichel, when he was building the basketball program, he kept delivering moments. He would beat Seton Hall.
Right.
He'd beat Ohio State when they were ranked. He would win at Iowa. And the football team just hasn't been able to get those moments yet. The moments, I think, are important when you're going through a lengthy rebuild, because it gives people a sense of hope. It's not faith without results. It's a sign of, hey, we're doing something here. Right. And look, moments don't necessarily mean it's going to work out. I mean, Eddie Jordan beat Wisconsin. They're in number 4, and then they lost like 15 straight games, Yeah. But I think that's the one thing, and it would have been, Michigan could have been a moment on the way. The rebuild's still going to be hard, but that would have been a moment that people could have gone back to. I look at, South Carolina. It's going to take a long time for Shane Beamer to get that program back to where it was. He's got a moment in his back pocket now because Florida showed up and was a complete disarray, and they took advantage of it. He's got that moment he can go back to. So I think that's the big key. Not going to happen this year probably, but next season, even if they struggle again, I think next year they've got to get a moment. I don't know what that moment is. It could be beating Boston College on the road in the opener. It could be upsetting Michigan, at home, beating Penn State at home. They've got to get that first moment, I think, that will give a lot of people kind of a break and kind of maybe increase the patience in the fan base that this is going to work out.
I love you dropping in the faith without results. A little Ashism in there. You think I wasn't going to notice that? Love it. All right, next question from Dave Melman, fan of the pod. You spend quite a bit of time talking to your readers about the perseverance and just hanging in there as a perennial bedraggled fan. Schiano has done that recently, too. I get it. Seems to me the real key is turning things around. It's not so much the fans, but rather ensuring the mood of recruits does not change. If we upgrade the talent level, Dave wants to know, what is the current move with the recruits? And it looks like, they got another big one on Saturday. Kair Price, I think his name, Syracuse decommit. Overall, we haven't seen a lot of decommits at this point. Good sign, I guess, Sarge?
Yeah, Greg Schiano, when we talk to him, every time we talk to him, he always says that they're honest with the recruits, and they don't want them to, look at the results and necessarily panic. And Kratz has brought this up before too, like the age old coaching if they do get blown out, the door's blown off, well, come here, and that means that there's going to be early playing time for you. That there's going to be opportunities to play, sooner rather than later, and come and try to help us out. So it seems like they've done a good job, as far as stabilizing the ship. At this point, we still have a couple more weeks, but remember, the early signing period, that's when the bulk of the recruiting class arrives. So I think if we have a pretty good indication that he's going to be able to hold on to this recruiting class,
and the best recruits already in the program, so that helps. All right, another good one here. What percentage of snaps Saturday would you give Wimsatt if Vedral is playing, and what percentage would you give him if Vedral is not playing? Okay, let's take both, Kratch. If Vedral's playing and it's a close game, I guess we're going to see less. But if he's not, what do you think?
If Vedral's playing, I would try to at least get Gavin maybe 2 series before halftime and then reassess. If Vedral's not playing, I would probably go 50-50, or 33-33-33. I think the big thing it's going to be tough is that, it's one thing for Greg Schiano to say that Snyder and Simon are even and they've got different scenarios and be cute with everything when they've just been in a current situation. He's going to have to, someone is going to have to go on the field first at quarterback unless they go with the 2 quarterback off and, they dip into the Princeton playbook. So I think that's also going to determine this is kind of the moment of truth here. Who is the actual quarterback, or are they that even? So look, I think you got to get Gavin on the field no matter what on Saturday and then go from there. And if it's
All
a
right.
blowout, if you're losing big at halftime, Gavin should play the entire second half.
Alex in Marlboro wants to know, I don't believe it's an overreaction to say every player who played significant time last season has regressed to some extent this season besides 03 Bo and Korsak. Do you agree? What do you make of this? Is there a developmental issue? You take this one, Sarge. I mean, it's hard to say every player, but, there have been a lot of them.
It's a fair question. It really is. I didn't really think about it, but Langen's gotten better at what he does, so he's developed a tight end. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line is clearly regressed. If you want to, not go, each player on the offensive line, defensive line hasn't been as good. They have not looked anywhere near Big Ten, level on the defensive line or the offensive line. So, yeah, is it a development issue? It's hard to say. But it's a fair question.
All right. I love this one from Jamie because it's an old school dig deep into the archives question. Dan Mullen has been in the news lately as he's clearly on the hot seat at Florida. How serious a candidate was Dan Mullen to take the Rutgers job after Kyle Flood's death spiral? And if he'd actually taken the job, how do you think the trajectory of the program would have changed? Sarge is waving his hand at me here. Why do you take that one then, Big Go?
Yeah, a serious candidate. They sniffed around. They clearly did. The Dan Mullen camp. I think he's from Pennsylvania, right, Cratch? I think
He's from Pennsylvania, and I think he coached at like New Hampshire or something.
Yeah, so he had some Northeast roots. They clearly sniffed around, but Rutgers, at that point was not going to. He was looking for $4 million or so, and he was not. Greg Schiano, and this was the previous cycle too. Remember, this was the Chris Ash, cycle. But
they still wanted to go cheap. They weren't ready to go.
They were not ready to go. What Dan Mullen was going to take, but he clearly his camp was clearly sniffing around to see if it wasn't mutual.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mullen, Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania native, went to Ursinus and Wagner, started his career, college coaching career at Wagner, Columbia, Syracuse. So, I think that if they had somehow hired Dan Mullen, the program would be really good. He would not have been Chris Ash.
No,
I completely agree.
I think Dan Mullen, is a little bit, was a buffoon last year. With the COVID stuff and all the antics they pulled at Florida. I think he's a guy who wants desperately to go to the NFL, and I think the NFL is kind of like, I don't know about this with this guy. But I will say this. I think that he is the third best coach in the history of Florida football, and he is kind of proving that Florida football is got, in many ways, a fan base that's as delusional as Tennessee or Nebraska. Because if you take away the Urban years and the Spurrier years, they're not that good. This guy is the third best coach in the history of Florida football, and they want to run him out of town. I think that team has quit on him. Obviously, it's gone sour, but I think it just is more indicative, not so much of him as a coach, but as Florida as a place where unless you are a Hall of Famer who revolutionizes the sport, you're not going to win at a Death Star rate. Yeah. But I think Dan Mullen would have won big here.
All right, a few more, and I'm sorry if I missed you. We had about 60 this week, which was a great number of questions. But two-part question from Joe and Neptune. One, isn't it a good thing that we're upset at 4 wins this far into the season? If this was 2017, I feel like people would think we were turning the corner. Playing into that, two, assuming we're 5-7 heading into Maryland, how full do you see the stadium being? Well, the second part, after what happened against Wisconsin and with the ticket, right, Sarge? I mean, I think it's going to be bad.
Full.
Not
going to be good. Well, they are. StubHub, is giving complimentary tickets out to basically anyone based on what the debacle that was.
That was terrible. That
line was insane, and it was mid first quarter. So I can't even blame the fans for the good majority of fans for not getting into the seats. But listen, Rutgers has a home stadium problem. They've lost 19 straight Big Ten games, at home. So you talk about some of the moments, and one thing I would argue with Cratch, on the moment thing, he's right that Peichel has some moments, but the Michigan State game, a year ago, the Purdue win, again, these are last year, COVID year, I guess you're going to take it. But even this year, 3-0 non-conference and winning at Syracuse, winning 2 weeks ago at Illinois. They've gotten some nice wins on the road, Syracuse on the road, and Illinois on the road, Michigan State on the road last year, but they are not playing. They don't win at home. Against Big Ten opponents. It's been since November of 2017 was the last time. Maryland in November 2017 was the last time. So they have a home problem.
And that is obviously that's key. You want to have a good home field advantage, and if the fans keep on getting performances like that, it's gonna be hard to imagine. And remember, the students won't be there after Thanksgiving either, because they'll be gone for the long weekend. All right, one funny one: can Meredith Civico join this football staff as a recruiting coordinator? I chuckled. And let's take this one last one, Cratch. Why wasn't a bigger deal made about players we were missing on the D-line? Mike Tverdoff, for one. To me, it really is a matter of lack of depth, exposing the difference between the top-tier Big Ten teams and Rutgers. Don't you agree? Tverdoff suspended 1 week after Lewis was suspended. They don't have a great defensive line. It's a great point.
No, they don't. I guess if you want to look at silver lining at it, Keontae Hamilton and Wesley Bailey got a lot of snaps that you weren't expecting them to get. Maybe those are, going back to the developmental point, in some ways I think that the COVID year guys, the 5th and 6th year seniors, like, they are what they are. And maybe they're regressing back to the mean, and maybe the focus is going to be next year. Okay, these young guys like Hamilton, Bailey, Troy Rainey, Holland Pierce, like, maybe I think that's the true developmental acid test for this coaching staff, is what do those guys look like next year. But no, defensive line is an area where, they need bodies up front on both sides of the line, and that's something that's you can't immediately recruit your way out of that. This is a 3-4 year, 5, 6, 7 year process. So
okay, Chris
Ash.
Yeah, the second time he's done that. He just slipped it in. I'm standing in Kansas at 115 degrees.
Hey, big win for the Jags yesterday.
It was, yeah. It was exciting. 9-6 over the Bills. Wow. All right. Thanks, everyone, for the questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to them all this week, but we'll do our best each week we can. All right. Indiana preview, guys. Unfortunately, I watched some of that game against Penn State. Indiana is not good. Is Michael Penix Jr. back for this game, though? That would certainly change things. What do we know about that?
He was quoted last week as saying that he intends to play again this season. They've got 3 games left. Don't know if that means he's going to play this week or a week in the future, but he has said he intends to play again this year.
Right. Is this a situation where Indiana has it's just kicking the can? They're done with it. They're folding the tent. They're done. What do we think with where the Hoosiers look? It's certainly a disappointing year for them.
Very disappointing year. I didn't think they were going to match what they did last year coming into the year, but I still thought they'd be like a 7-5, 8-4 team. They've really bottomed out. A lot of injuries, a lot of issues. I can't pick this Rutgers team right now with all the injuries and the fact that the offense has been so impotent in Big Ten play. I just think, and look, Indiana's a team well coached, and this is a big moment for them. I mean, they're having a losing season. It's very disappointing with all the expectations they entered the year, being in the top 25, but you don't want it to completely unravel. And I think this is a situation where you need to beat Rutgers at home to kind of, save some dignity and move forward and try to get over this blip on the radar. So I think the line was like 8.5 or something. I'm not.
Was it 8.5? Wow, I thought 6.5. Hang on,
6.5, 8.5. I was doing so much yesterday, I didn't really dig into it. Right. I think Indiana will win. 27-13 or something like that.
All right, so you're picking a cover regardless. I'm going to get the line here. What do you think? Where do you think this is going, Sarge, as I dig up the line, Indiana Rutgers line?
Yeah, I think Indiana's going to win. I think just both. Indiana's ahead of Rutgers from a recruiting standpoint. They developed, and again, I know they're injured and everything. There's questions, at quarterback, but they've always run the ball historically well against Rutgers. I think that they're going to try to pound them, and the one thing that concerns me is the unknown at quarterback, and if Noah Vedral can't play, I think it might be, we're going to see a heavy dose of Gavin Wimsatt. I don't know if he's ready to win a game at this point.
Right.
I think it'll be close. Whatever the line is, I think it's going to be close. So, if it's 6 or 8 or whatever, I think Rutgers is going to cover. So I'm going to say 2017.
Okay, 27, so that would be a cover. I feel the same way as Kratz does. Thinking again, I keep on thinking back to the last time we were there, which wasn't our favorite day. That was the Chris Ash lightning delay game, right?
No. It was the Johnny Langan Nunzio Campanelli 1 yard passing game.
Oh, that's right. That's
where
right. So
Indiana scored like 10 seconds into the game on a fumble recovery.
I didn't make that trip. Did I make that trip? I don't remember. They all blend together.
I just remember being there. It was like the nicest press conference room I've ever seen on the road. It was like this big bay windows and like airy and like they had like nice tables. I just remember like Nunzio being like, I can't believe like we threw for 1 passing yard. And like the press conference goes on and like three questions in, like Nunzio's like still shaking his head like, oh my God, we threw for 1 yard.
That's right. I think I was there. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm going to pick an easy Indiana win, 30-14. I just don't like what I'm seeing right now. I'm going to need to see a good performance before I believe in this team again. That's just kind of where I'm at. All right, what else do we got here? I want to mention at the end of this, I would shout out to JP DeMoro, fan of the podcast, running the New York Marathon after losing. I think he lost a Sarge in weight. I don't think he lost a Kratz.
I wrote about him. I wrote about him a couple of years ago at a tailgate, about how much. Google it.
Yeah.
Tremendous job.
Amazing. Good for him. I didn't see his time, but obviously, since I couldn't run the 0.2 of the 26.2, it doesn't matter what you're running in if you finish. So congratulations to him. We talked about field hockey. You want to talk about wrestling? How do we?
Can I talk about Jersey Mike's?
Of course. Yes. That was on my list.
Week. So obviously, we reported, about a month ago, that it was going to be a 20-year deal, worth $28 million. We got the contract. A big key to that contract, folks, is there's an opt-out for Jersey Mike's, after 28-29, or I guess going into 2029, that if Rutgers does not have either a new basketball arena or a substantially renovated basketball arena, they can opt out of the deal. Now, some people have said, well, arena. I mean, come on, like, at that point, Rutgers will only get, it's $1.4 million a year. Are they really going to cave to that pressure? No, not necessarily, but, it is interesting to see where the school administration is looking. I mean, clearly there's going to be the ACOM report. We're going to see a facilities master plan soon, and it's not just the Death Star that they're focused on right now. They are focused on doing a lot of changes to the RAC. And when we talk about changes, we can talk about this. We dedicate a whole podcast to this, like what we expect to see. But I think. They're not just going to, add, 3,000, 4,000 seats to make it a 12,000 seat arena. I think they're still going to be, in the, 8,000 to 9,000 range, from a seating capacity. But I think they really want to have a lot of premium seating. Think Villanova Pavilion, that type of, what they did, where maybe you lose some of the student section, but you make it, completely all the way around where you can, walk the entire, arena. I think you're going to see a lot more premium seating, going forward.
What about a hockey rink?
Oh boy.
Oh, you know what? I got one of those emails. I'm probably at the same text message in DM as you did, but look, I mean, I'll revert back to the Pat Hobbs. What he always says. Penn State was able to do theirs with a $200 million donation. So, if we see a $200 million donation, come, Rutgers away, because again, we've talked about this before, but it's not just having a men's hockey team, but you'd have to add a women's hockey team as well. So, $200 million donation, and I think then we're going to see some ice hockey.
That's going to be fascinating. Yeah.
Sarge, you probably would know. Like, could they do men's ice hockey and women's wrestling? Could they offset that? Or is it hockey's a head count sport, so you probably can't do that.
Yeah. I'd have to dig in deeper on that, but yeah, I don't know.
New basketball arena. I tell you, there's something to look forward to. Right after the football Death Star, there'll be like $1 billion in buildings right there.
Oh, I mean, look, I mean, a lot of fans were throwing it out, like, and joking about it. I know we've joked about it, internally. Might as well just throw it out there. But, if somehow, some way, we're sitting in like 2 or 3 years, and they're like breaking ground on the basketball arena, and they haven't done anything with the football arena, I mean, we're going to see, a brand new football coach.
That's not going to happen. That's not. Let me just say that I'd sooner be the athletic director than that would happen. But just to be pretty clear that it'd be
I don't think we're going to get to that, folks.
Yeah. I don't think so.
I think their priority is the pecking order is football practice facility. But I think, again, it is interesting to see where they're thinking. They're thinking big. They do want to address some of the rack, just being old and not having any premium seating.
Can we start the renovation? Maybe just a coat of paint. Could they just get that? I mean, it was there at the other day. You look out the window at the beautiful.
It's a trapezoid of error.
The thing is rusting. It's like the Love Shack. The tin roof is rusting at the rack. I mean, come on. Can we just get some Rust-Oleum at the rack? Maybe is that too much to ask? A little white paint. All right, Kratz. Final word for you. Anything?
That's it. I think I got it.
Well, what about wrestling? How do they look?
Yeah.
Hey, it looks great. Season opening quad meet. Cleveland State, Binghamton, NJCU handled them all easily. Looks like the big thing is they look stronger than ever in the upper weights. Jackson Turley, John Poznanski, obviously, Greg Bulsack, 197. He's an All-American type kid, transfer from Clarion. And then Boone McDermott, Iowa guy, former junior college national champion, quickly becoming a fan favorite. When you got a big guy with a mullet who pins people and people can scream Boone in the building, that kind of works out for the New Jersey crowd. So they look good. Scott Goodell thinks this could be his best team ever. And if you look on paper, they could have 5, 6 All-Americans. They could have all, 9, 10 guys get to the national tournament. They just got to kind of make good on these expectations now.
All right. We'll talk about that more next week. Fellas, signing off from the Gianna Glatz bandwagon, Steve Politi, James Kratch. Thanks to DevCo, Keith Sargent, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.
You haven't heard enough from me yet, huh? Steve Politi here for one last thank you to this episode's sponsor, New Brunswick Development Corporation, and to listeners like you who make it all the way to the end of the show. We'll see you again soon.